Hey everybody, how you doing? Dr. Ray Pastore here, and we're going to talk about what did we learn, what did we see as we watched the Reddit Wall Street Bets hearing yesterday. We'll talk about, what I observed. Let me turn my light on a little bit so it's a little lighter in my office. It's freezing again today here where I am in North Carolina. So absolutely freezing. So I've got a winter hat on again. And of course, a t-shirt. So let's talk about what did we learn from the hearings yesterday. So did you watch the hearings? What did you see? I had them on while I was working just so I could kind of pick up what was happening. Lots of interesting stuff. So let me tell you what I learned while I watched these things. So first of all, if you're not familiar with what's happening, there was a congressional hearing where they interviewed CEO of Melvin Capital, DFV from Reddit, the Reddit CEO, Robinood CEO, and then they had an expert, like attorney from the government, like an SEC expert, like regulator kind of person. And basically what they do is they give each congressional member 5 minutes to ask them questions. So let's start out with some of the goofy stuff that happened during this thing. So it's rather odd that it seems like a lot of members of Congress have no idea how the stock market works. They asked some really weird questions. So, for example, somebody asked a question to the Robinhood CEO, how are you guys monitoring, these social media posts that people are making? And the Robinhood CEO is like, we don't monitor social media. Like we're a stock brokerage company. We don't monitor social media. So, this congressman had absolutely no clue what the difference was between social media and Robinhood. So the first thing I realized, and there were so many other questions that made no sense. Like I couldn't figure it out. So the first very unusual thing about this is that members of Congress, a lot of them appear not to understand the stock market, not to appear to understand technology whatsoever, which is really scary because these are people who are making decisions. I think as a society, we do need to do a much better job of getting people in office to know what the heck's going on. And I think part of that problem is we have these two sides, Democratic or Republican. So if there's just like one person running and they're like for your side, you just vote for them regardless of the moronic things that they're saying. So we need to totally elect better people, because these questions they were asking these people were, for the most part, absolutely ridiculous. So that's the first thing I want to say. Now, there were some really good people asking some really good questions, but the majority were asking some BS questions. The other kind of ridiculous questions that were being asked were people making this about themselves. So some of the members of Congress were making the question and answer about their specific agenda. So and I'll give you an example of how that happened. So it appears that, and I'm talking about both Democratic and Republicans because they each did this for their side. So it appears that Democrats want to put regulation on the stock market that would tax trades. And they believe that taxing these trades would prevent people like me from investing in the market, which is true. It would stop tons of the Robinhood people, like that whole crowd, right? So for some reason, Democrats want to create these regulations, these taxes on stock trades that would stop people from investing because we're not smart enough to invest, right? Because we're not smart people, apparently, Now the Republicans, on the flip end of that, what they wanted to do is they want no regulation so that the big banks and stuff can actually rob us more blindly than they already are. So basically what I got from the Democratic and Republican side is they each think that we're not too bright. They each believe that that we need to be protected somehow, and the protections are very strange that they suggested. So I wasn't happy with all of that. Very, very, very weird. So let's get down to some of the questions and other things that I observed during this congressional hearing. So there were a lot of people who you could tell. So this is something that's also weird, is that a lot of the congressmen are paid or have big donations from the people they were interviewing. So what they would do is they would lob them these softball questions like, hey, can you explain what Robinhood does? That's your question? You're a waste. Why are you even asking a question? Don't even come and be here if you're going to ask that question. And I'm going to get to what nobody asked what they should have. So we had that going on, right? We had the softball question. We had the ridiculous questions that showed the Congress had no idea what they were talking about. We had the lobbing softball questions, which were also absolutely ridiculous. Then we had the I'm gonna ask questions to support my agenda questions. So those are the three ridiculous things we had happening. Then we did have some good questions where people were grilling these, people, asking them, did you know about, it's kind of funny. So they can't answer questions. So like I'd say the most fascinating question that was asked the whole time was someone asked the CEO, I believe, of Melvin Capital, how many people he had in the room with him at the time. Now, this guy, I swear this guy was reading answers off a teleprompter. It was so ridiculous. He couldn't move his eyes as he was talking. I mean, he was clearly, like, if I was doing like a joke, like they needed like a billboard next to this guy showing like what he was saying. Like there was someone holding like a card in front of this guy telling him what to say. But anyway, someone asked him, how many people are in the room with you right now? There were 5. He said 5 people. There were 5 people in the room helping this guy answer these questions. 5 people. Well, you know what? The little investor guy, DFV, he was there by himself, all dressed up in a suit, trying to look professional, which is good. But it was just really, really, really interesting I think that was probably the most interesting question that came out of this was how many people are in the room with you. That gives you a really clear picture of what is happening here. Now let's talk about what wasn't asked that I would have liked to have seen asked, at least not asked as directly and more often. So first of all, and some of the problems with these proceedings in general, these people aren't required to answer your questions. They can plead the fifth. They can just dance around your question. The CEO of Robinhood, the Melvin guy, all of them were prepped on responding to questions. So if they didn't like your question, they would simply dance around it. They were prepped with what to say and how to respond to it. They wouldn't say yes or no in certain cases. But like what I wanted to see asked is, Robinhood, is it a conflict of interest that that you are routing stocks, choosing to route stocks through a company that has ownership stake in you? And that company also has investments in stocks that are being traded on your platform. And additionally, is it asking Melvin Capital, not Melvin, the Interactive Brokers, is it a conflict of interest that you actually route stocks and have ownership or you can actually play the stock market? That's a big conflict of interest. So these are the things we're not going to address from this at all. In fact, the only thing coming from this trial is that they're probably going to try to go after a couple of the guys from Wall Street Bets. That's pretty much what's going to come of this. Because what happened was they posted on a forum saying, hey, I like this stock. I think it's good. Here's some of the reasons why. DFE posted that, hey, there could be this short squeeze. Here's why I believe it. But honestly, it sounded like a bunch of nonsense. And that apparently is what they're going to go after him for. Now, at the same time, these big hedge funds can literally short a stock, go on and pay news agencies and go on news agencies and say to people, I think this stock's going to go down. You shouldn't buy it. Completely fine. Nobody cares. Good for them. Another really fascinating thing that was pointed out during the hearings that one of the congressmen brought up was that these people doing these kind of shady things is pretty common. And here's the problem. One of the examples that they brought up. So one of the illegal things they've been doing is so like when one of their investors wants to invest in something, let's say they know a bunch of people are going to invest in something. Instead of allowing the people to invest, they might actually do the opposite first for themselves so that they could like make the play. And what they were doing is when they would get caught doing this is they would get fined. But what they found is they actually profited $13 billion from this and were fined $5 million. So essentially doing this illegal thing is just a cost of business. Why not do the illegal thing when you're only going to be paid have a little fine? It's something I brought up before many times when we talk about like polluting water. Like the big company that makes $2 billion polluting the water and gets like a $50 million fine for doing it. Of course, they're going to keep doing it. Here's how you prevent this stuff from happening. Every person that was aware of the legal activity goes to jail. All profit, 100% of profit made from the illegal activity is taken. Guess what? You stop this illegal activity from occurring. But we're not doing that. We're actually they're going to go after the guy on Reddit. And what's funny is both high profile Democrats and Republicans are sticking up for the little guy, which is awesome to them. So good. And that I'll mention some of those people. It was Ted Cruz. It was AOC and Donald Trump Jr. 3 people who all probably fight with each other. That would be like, imagine being in a room with those 3. Now, obviously, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump Jr. are both on the Republican end. But I can't imagine even those 2 getting along with each other. Imagine those 3 sitting together. Like, what would that conversation be like with them 3? Imagine getting them all 3 of them to agree on an issue. AOC, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump Jr. Getting them 3 to agree on an issue is like craziness, right? Like, but just they actually agree with the little guy. They agree with Wall Street Bets. They agree with that these hedge funds, did something terrible. And I give them all props. It's one thing that we don't do in our society in politics for some odd reason is we tend to only see our side and we don't like to see the other side. I don't know why that is. It's like a football team. We can't admit they were like bad or something. I don't know why. But I call out all politicians on all sides. I could care less what side of the spectrum they're on. I don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat. I will call them out consistently for every single thing. And not like ridiculous little things, but like for big things, like people are calling out, and I just was talking about Ted Cruz for going to Cancun during state of Texas is under a deep freeze. Now, probably a poor decision on his part. I agree he needs some flack for it, but asking him to like resign because of that is a little ridiculous. Come on, like, and I'm completely not a fan of his, but like that's ridiculous stuff. So like I call people out for big things. Should he have made the choice to go there? Probably not. So it was probably a bad decision. Asking him to resign because of it? Come on. Let him take some heat in the press for a couple days. And he came back, so that was good enough. But him, Donald Trump Jr., and AOC all agree on this issue, which is amazing. Surprisingly, people that asked, there were some people that asked some good questions, some Congress that really asked good questions, and I was happy to see that. But some of them were just, it was like I was watching the social media trials all over again where they didn't know anything about tech. It's like, how are we electing these people? It's like scary that they don't know this stuff. So that was interesting. But yeah, I basically really learned nothing from the whole trial. Nothing's going to happen, except we might go after a few Redditors. There might be some regulations passed that are going to hurt all of us, or some deregulation that's going to help the hedge funds. I mean, you take your pick, Democrat or Republican. None of them are looking out for me. So, so yeah, that's kind of what I learned. It was rather fascinating and interesting. You know, it seemed like people really think that us retail investors are dumb, and I don't understand why. We all understand that the stock market is a big bet, that every dime I put in, I mean, I put money in today. I bet on, I'll tell you exactly what I did. I bought some shares of AT&T, some options. I'm already down, and look at this. I'm already down 10%. That's what happens. That's the name of the game. But I have some time. I'm going to hold on to them. I think I'm going to get my money, you know. But that's part of the gamble. It's a casino. We understand the stock market is literally a casino. I make informed bets, which is better than me just like betting on like red or black at the casino. But it's basically what it is. I understand that. We're not dumb. I don't want to be taxed more. What we do need is we need some regulation around transparency of what's happening. We need regulation around different ethical policies that are happening. For example, the fact that Interactive Brokers and Melvin Capital can manipulate the market and be invested in the market at the same time is a problem. And there needs to be oversight there. We need an actual SEC. The SEC does nothing. They don't go after these people. Maybe it's that the SEC needs power. Like these fines that we give these people for purposely doing illegal things are ridiculous. There should be jail time for this stuff. That's how you stop it. And fines need to be more than what was profited. So like $1 million fine off a $1 billion deal is nothing. How about we fine them $1.5 billion off their $1 billion deal and send a couple of them to jail? That stuff will stop pretty quick. And that's what we need to do. So we need transparency. We need things that are going to help the retail investor and just add transparency into this whole world, and so that we can see what's happening. If something's illegal, it needs to be illegal for everyone, not just certain people. You know, if a hedge fund has a position in a company, they should not be able to pay someone to say bad things about that company or good things about that company, or they shouldn't be able to go on TV and say good or bad things about that company, unless we're all fully aware that they have a position there. So we need to look out for that kind of stuff. And that's my basic advice. Those are my thoughts on the hearing, what I saw. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say for today. It was fun. Go back and watch it. I mean, you can look online and see what was said. I do notice, sorry, I'm drinking my morning coffee. I do notice that the media tends to really exaggerate some of the questions that were asked, and some of the, like, because I saw some of the, like, the things in the media, and I was like, you know, it's really wasn't a big deal with the trial, but like you're really focusing on that, like, one question that senator asked. And I don't know. I mean, they were asked a bunch of times. Like, I can't figure out how the Robinhood CEO says he's like, you know, do you think the stock went down because you stopped people from being able to buy it? And he like won't answer that question. It's like, obviously the stock went down because people couldn't buy it on your platform. You know, the fact that the SEC is the only one that should be stopping buying and selling of stocks, not brokerages, is a significant problem that needs to be investigated. And that's one of the other things that needs to happen. So, yeah, that's it. That's my rant about this trial that I saw yesterday. But it was interesting to watch, and it's neat to like watch this history happening. So, anyway, guys, I hope y'all have a good weekend and a good day, and I'll see y'all later.